And we're rolling. Hello and welcome to the Kingdom Strength Podcast. My name is Troy Briscoe, your host. And just for any listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you're a new listener, just a reminder, this is a platform where we discuss all things health, fitness, exercise, patient care, business, as well as Christian topics, Bible studies, and just how to pursue the Lord, keep your eyes on Him through the ups and downs of this human experience. And today is no different. I am honored to have one of my close friends, brother in Christ, Dr. Patrick Krier, here on the podcast. And Patrick, it is so good to see your face, and on this little screen here. He's out in Georgia, the great state of Georgia, and I'm honored and blessed to have you on the show today.
Troy, I'm very happy to be here, buddy.
Of course. Well, hey, why don't you give the listeners a little about you?
Man, that's a loaded topic. Well, did I start in fifth grade, or did I start just the last couple of months here? No, but yeah, my name's Patrick. I've been saved by grace through faith, and I am a very driven person that continues to pursue God in all that He does. But I love my church. I love my family. I love being an entrepreneur and helping others live their best life. And I do that through every day, I think. So that's just kind of a little bit about me. And I know we'll get into the details of this.
Indeed. And, for our listeners today, Patrick and I have had many long phone calls where we just like get going and then we look down and, it seems like a couple hours have passed by just like that. So bear with us today. It won't necessarily be that long, but it's going to be a fruitful conversation that will
Sure.
glorify the Lord, and and he's going to share some wisdom and insight, particularly regarding being a clinician and starting up practice right out of school. That's kind of the topic of today's conversation. So there are many students within the chiropractic profession that listen to the show here. So it'll be a great topic to share with your friends, especially if you're looking to start up a practice out of school. So first question here for you, Patrick, will be, tell us about the Movement Lab. What is it? What's the mission? What are you building over there in Georgia?
Dude, I love it. Well, the Movement Lab is a clinic that specializes in equipping our community to have the health necessary to do what they need to do and desire to do in life. So we take a holistic approach using movement, nutrition, temperature therapy, stress mitigation in a personalized program to make sure that our clients can be equipped to live a independent life that is partnered with a clinician. Most of the time, of course, in the beginning, more hands-on, and then, of course, as time goes on, more independent. So we really love to say that we don't want stupid clients. We want smart clients. Hopefully that resonates with some clinicians that are either, students or out there. They don't want their clients to be uneducated. They want their clients to be informed. And that's really what the Movement Lab is a company that focuses on educating, equipping, and then of course applying basic holistic principles to their lives to live the most they can.
hmm That's amazing, and I know you're doing a bang up job and helping people, giving them the autonomy over their health and well being, and make that impact in the long run. That's a big part of what you do, and I was encouraged to get to go see that too. I got to see the brand new location that he just opened, and before it actually launched, and it's a beautiful spot, and praise be to the Lord for the opportunity to grow into that, and I'm excited to see how it continues to grow, how the Lord will bless it, man.
Thanks, brother.
And yeah, of course. So I'm curious, and I'm sure many listeners are as well. When did you know you wanted to open up shop out of school? Was there a certain moment? Was there a time in prayer, or you've always had a entrepreneurial bug? You're like, man, this is something I wanna do. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fascinating because I've been asked that question many times, and I think each time it comes back to probably more specific points in life. Like I remember doing masonry when I was, I think, a freshman in undergrad, that summer between freshman year and sophomore year. And
Mhm.
my the mason, the owner of the company, handed me a big block and goes, "Take this to your dorm. And every time you think about quitting, look at the block and realize that you get this to come back to if you quit." And anyone that knows me knows I'm pretty candid. I'll kind of talk about myself. What the world would say harshly, but I would say it's biblical. But, I was not that smart. I really wasn't. And I was stubborn and I worked hard. And I would look at that block in my room, in my corner, in my dorm, and I would just be like, nope, I ain't gonna go back and do that. And I've always seen the world, I guess, differently from the standpoint of, can't this be better? There has to be a better way. This could be more efficient. What if this? And I don't really know a time that it kind of clicked for me, but I do remember a time when I was like, I want to be able to do that for others. I want to be able to hand them something to say, don't go back to doing something like this, or go do something that is greater. There was no
Hmm.
time for me. I just kind of was wired that way. But I think that
Hmm.
there's certain people that are made for certain things, as we believe. And I was just one of those people who was made to be an entrepreneur because my mind functioned that way. We
Hmm.
kind of say in the business world, like, you have to have the perfect position, and have to find the perfect player for the perfect position, but
Hmm.
both have to be equal. And there's no, you know, everyone has a gift, and there's no bad player. It's just you got to find the right position. In my position, it was just to be an entrepreneur and create things. Not always good at nurturing, but I'm good at creating. So, but I have a team set around me to be able to nurture
Yeah,
and
yeah. Kelsey's pretty good at that, huh? She can help nurture for sure.
she's very good at nurturing. Yeah. And good thing she's pragmatic, and, she's good at nurturing, and I'm good at creating and being chaotic. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, balances each other out a little bit, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, no, I love it. I love it. And speaking of which, I mean, interesting, point of conversation too could be, how is it navigating starting up and then managing a business alongside your spouse?
Mm, yeah. So,
Any big takeaways? Maybe someone's tackling that endeavor for themselves or
yeah,
going through it as well. Yeah.
I think so. Kelsey and I, we actually had a business called Evolve Training and Performance in grad school. So we basically learned, I would say, 70% of what a business was from the 2 last years we were in grad school, and did a lot of personal training, working with CrossFit athletes, doing corrective exercise, working with golfers, doing sports performance and just correctives there, working with the United States Army, doing their health to fitness program. That was probably the coolest thing I did it with the company. But really, that's when we realized that we are not the same people, but we didn't know why, probably, until I would say 3 or 4 months ago. Really, we have learned that I function very much from a creative lens, and Kelsey functions more from that nurturing lens of things. And we learned it more over time, but it was really hard for a long time. I was like, how come she doesn't,
Mhm.
do it like I do it? Because of course I it's my way or the highway. No, I'm kidding. But it was one of those things where I really was confused why she wasn't more out there, if you will, and creative and looking to find opportunity. But she was really looking to kind of say, what is it that we're trying to build? What is it that we're trying to do? So it was really fascinating how over time we fell into, which I talked to you about Iron Forms, Troy. And Iron Forms was a Christian business organization that really focuses on putting Christ first, your family second, and your company third. And it's truly amazing that this organization lend me to a brother of Christ. And he said to me, he goes, Patrick, it sounds like you're a creative, chaotic person, and Kelsey is a nurturing, caring person. Is that correct? And I just laughed. I said, absolutely. So that was about 6 months ago. And from there, we kind of figured out how we tick, and, what the intricacies are between the two of us. So I think that we've probably in the last couple months really figured out more about the gifts that we have and how to utilize our gifts better together to move forward our company, make sure that our relationship is strong, and make sure that, of course, we're putting Christ at the center of our life, which is the most important.
Amen, brother. I loved what you said at the end there. Still talking about the movement lab. I would love to hear kind of the process, getting it started while you were still in school at the time. laying down the foundations into the actual transition of, hey, we're doing this, we're live, just so we can, the listeners and myself can get a glimpse as to what that process looked like for you and Kelsey as well. Again, just from a
Yeah,
business perspective, so people can have maybe a lens to look through with your experiences if they're out trying to do the same with launching a business or a clinic, whatever it may be.
for sure. Well, first thing is you don't know what you don't know. And that is something that is amazing because I was in Birmingham, Alabama under Dr. Bo Beard at the farm, and Kelsey was in Raleigh,
Yes,
North
sir.
Carolina under Triangle CRC. And we were kind of finishing up the final touches of what it was that we wanted to do. And in that time period, it was amazing because this place that we were going to lease and build out to create what we have created about 6 months ago and open up. This was about, another 2 years prior. We had the whole thing fall through right after graduation. So we were supposed to start the build out right after graduation, and the whole thing fell through, and just didn't work. And looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened. Meaning, there was supposed to be, high overhead, high all these things, right? Like a lot of expenses, basically, right out of school. And it was amazing because God said no, and it was very clear. And what Kelsey and I did was, kind of freak out for a second, but it made me realize, hey, we already did this. We already started a company in grad school, and we already know what it's like to, try to find clients in a new area without a specific
Hmm.
location. And that's what we
Yeah.
did. We landed at the Beast Center and partnered there in Gainesville, Georgia, and we basically worked out of one room. Kelsey and I both did, and we were there for I think 10 months as we were getting ready to build the location we have now. Found a new location to basically lease and then do a build out for, and basically encompass everything that we needed to: a gym, treatment rooms, sauna cold plunge area. We wanted to make sure that there's what we call the three biggest stimuluses of care, which is movement, nutrition, and temperature, the three biggest holistic ones. Some would argue light, some would argue different things, but I'm just big on making sure that it's those three things. So we were working out of this one room for about 10 months. And, you know, at first it was like, wow, instead of doing these big marketing campaigns or whatever else it may be, we were just out of one room and we're going around meeting people and doing all these different things of how to get clients.
Hmm.
And you learned a lot, out of that 10 months that we were there, we learned a tremendous amounts. And that's really what set us up to move into Brazelton, the Brazelton location of the Movement Lab. And that's the 3,000 square foot office we have now, and a clinic, a gym, and then temperature therapy room. So that was kind of the transition, if you will. And God had his hand all over it. He knew exactly what we could handle and what we couldn't. And it was amazing how it kind of went from, a plan that was like, nope, right away and thought of as a disaster, to a plan now that, looking back, we're so glad that it all happened the way it did.
Hmm. Yeah. God's perfect plan and his perfect timing, man.
Yep,
That
exactly.
that's incredible for real. And let me tell you, that location you got right now is awesome. It is a clinic like that you don't come across every day. Let me tell you. So if you're in that area, go check it out. Even if it's just stop by, say hey to Dr. Patrick, and say hey, heard you on the podcast. I probably don't have any listeners out there in in Georgia, but hey, you never know.
No, I'm sure there are, man. I'm sure there are.
Yeah, a fun question too that you were telling me about when I was down there for a visit, when I was asking why Georgia? Why Brazelton? Why that area? So I love it for you to share that story too. Of course, it's long story short, it's all God, but I find it enjoyable to kind of hear your journey through that.
Yeah. So
Being a boy from up north, it's like what man, what's he doing down in Georgia?
is it's our story, but how we met? No, I'm kidding. We that was a fun story too. No, Kelsey and I, we always wanted to move south. We do not like the winter. We love the summer. Love the lakes, love the mountains, the whole thing. We vacationed there as kids, and we wanted to move south. And on the way to looking for where we wanted to live, mm, Kelsey and I had a little vacation through Tennessee, and then on the way to Tennessee, we were stopping in Georgia to kind of have the weekend there before going to Birmingham to see Dr. Bo Beard and the farm. That was the first time we were gonna go visit them. So we're like, you gotta go. I mean, if you haven't went to the farm, by the way, you gotta go. Troy was talking about our clinic, but shout out to Dr. Bo Beard. So,
Hmm.
but with that though, we were kind of going through Tennessee, kind of like, no, this is where we think we're gonna end up. So we went to Nashville, we went to Chattanooga, we went to another small town, and just didn't really have a sense that this is where we belong. And Kelsey and I then stayed in Alpharetta and went to the Alpharetta Farmers Market for that weekend. And that's the reason why Kelsey wanted to go to Georgia in the first place, which is funny. And it's funny, I'm a small town boy. So I look at a map and I'm like, no way, man. That's like right in the big city, just north of Atlanta. Like, what are you talking about? And Kelsey said yes. I said no. So then, of course, if anyone has a lady in their life, they had to go, you know? So it's it's really one of those things where, you know, the woman, if she wants it, you got to go and do it. So we did, and we fell in love with Georgia. We love again, all the nature. We love the Bible Belt. We didn't grow up in the Bible Belt, and we love, you know, the Christian culture around here.
Yeah,
And
because
that's kind of
you're
just
from what, the Milwaukee area? Is that your
yep, just
origin?
north of Milwaukee. Yep. Yep. So we just
Different.
fell in love with it and
Yeah.
decided to move down and go on a whim. So
Hey, heck yeah. No, and I can only imagine too, being in a place you never lived before, and building a practice and a patient base, and you know, going out there and doing marketing can be tough for sure. You know, a lot of people that are starting practice go to a place where they know people, or grew up, or have somewhat of an establishment, right? So I'm encouraged to hear that, you know, y'all are growing something and doing something big. And anybody that's less listening to, with Patrick's point about going out and doing marketing, going to events, having conversations with people, really putting yourself out there, seeing how you can be a benefit to other circles first, and then maybe they'll want to continue that dialogue and discussion, and it's really being a valuable member of the community, and an asset to other businesses out there too. So it's awesome to see what you're doing, man. And, you know, I'm excited to see how it will continue to grow. So when it comes to the clinic standpoint, let's kind of shift gears into clinical practice a little bit. I know you shared a little bit about kind of the three pillars of health that you are rolling with as far as the movement lab. Tell listeners more about kind of your philosophy with patient care.
mhm, absolutely. Well, I talked to you guys about the movement, the nutrition, and the temperature therapy side of things. But in reality, we're looking at physiology, which operates on a continuum that is baselined and it's outside of exactly a treatment. It's really a baseline that is on a continuum of overall health, holistic in nature. So I love when Brett Winchester talked about Gestalt. The whole of the body is greater than the sum of its parts. And when you're looking at physiology, you have to realize that inputs to the body create outputs. And our philosophy is that we want to make sure that we assess certain big factors to make sure that we know what needs improvement, what is proficient, or what is excellent. We're not really worried about what is excellent or proficient per se, as much as, of course, we're interested in what needs improvement. And how to improve something is very important because physiology can adapt based on stress. Stress and recovery equals adaptation. It's like a basic principle of human physiology. So what we use is you know, temperature, movement, nutrition. And really when it comes down to it is it's just a specific stress with specific recovery equals a specific outcome. And that's really the fun part behind it is, you know, it's a lot of communication, a lot of relationship building to make sure that we're communicating what we do properly because medication is the same way or you know light therapy is the same way or I don't know there's a lot of different types of therapies that are the same way with a certain stress or a certain recovery
Hmm.
but when you do it correctly I think it's more natural in its own means and it's basically just using more modern knowledge and science to be able to get to an outcome that you can do from the standpoint of more synthetic, which we don't want to do per se. So you're kind of teaching someone to do it themselves. And that's what really we love to do. It's like kind of the true purist active care approach. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit about our philosophy.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And when it comes to like active care, neuromusculoskeletal care, and kind of the RTP framework where kind of we both come from, to some degree where we are operating under, right? That's not too, I guess, unique or not. I mean, from a chiropractic profession as a whole, it's kind of rare, but from an active care standpoint, you know, it's pretty common from our world that we're coming through. But what's rather unique too is the way you're integrating and layering everything together, particularly with temperature. That's something that most clinics don't have and aren't utilizing. So I'll be curious to hear more about how you're layering that aspect of care into your time with patients, or when you might feel like that's indicated or not. Tell us a little bit more about the temperature specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when it comes down to when it comes down to nutrition, movement, and temperature, those three
Hmm.
things affect every system of our body, and it affects it in different ways. And that's where the cool
Hmm.
part behind this whole thing goes, is that you don't have to know every single thing to realize that if you put someone in a sauna, that their tissues will get looser, they're going to feel more relaxed, as long as it's not too hot. And you have a lot of vasodilation. You have a lot of truly relaxation of tissues and shunting of blood. I look a lot at blood flow as means to get what the outcome is that we're looking to get. And I use this for a lot of folks who are a lot stiffer, which, as you know, Troy, being a doc now, there's a lot of people who are really stiff. And, this is really good, not only for that, but the leading killer in the world is cardiovascular disease. And if we can't vasodilate and shunt blood from our gut to our muscles and be able to make basically all these inflammatory chemicals that are good, we will not have adaptive tissues in our body. Specifically, you can say muscles and connective tissue, along with saying blood vessels. So, really, sauning or putting someone in a hot environment like a hot tub, even, those are great things. We don't have a hot tub, but just an example. Those are great ways to basically get a systemic approach to global relaxation. And then the opposite is true from a cold plunge perspective, but it's actually more of a mental standpoint of things too. So you can shunt blood to your gut. I've used this a lot with gut health for our clients, but I've also used it for overcoming mental barriers for a lot of our clients. And that part is so cool. We're talking about anxiety, depression, you know, PTSD even as well. We have someone that, is training for the tactical games, and he's overtraining because he has to train with a SWAT team, and he also is training with me. So he's using this as a recovery tool. And then it's important to know that, hot is usually more stressful for the body and more of a stress orientation. Cold is more of a recovery modality and made for recovery. But as I talked about before, stress plus recovery equals an outcome or adaptation. What is the desired outcome? Where are you in this journey? What is going on in their life? There's big tools that you can kind of use, and temperature is, I think, a vital tool that, hopefully in 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of clinicians are using to help encourage faster progress. And that's as passive as it gets too, by the way, for us.
Mhm.
We really want to make sure that, sitting in a sauna or at the worst, sitting in a cold plunge is the hardest it can get, even though that's pretty hard too. But we want to make sure that systemic side of things is really built into what we do overall to change the person's experience to make it a better outcome, of course.
Yeah, no, I love that. All the way from the training of the mind almost with getting over putting yourself through something comfortable with the cold plunge, and all the way to the sauna with increasing systemic blood flow. I'd be curious to lean into a little bit more about the gut health as well, kind of how you are integrating those two from a nutrition standpoint, maybe even starting with kind of an assessment standpoint, what you're looking at, and then how are you integrating those two together from nutrition and just kind of maybe systemic blood flow, working on gut health and that barrier there. Share a little bit about what you're doing on that front.
Yeah, so I think it's easier to share an example on this one. So
Mhm.
I have a client right now that has a stomach ulcer, and
Mm-hmm.
he is on medications to basically inhibit that. There's a couple different kinds, but basically they're anti-inflammatories to kind of help with that. The question I asked him is, well, why do you think that's there in the first place? And he goes, dang it, I wonder, I wonder why that's there. And I was just like, maybe because of these factors
He's
that he
like,
was
huh,
doing.
you're asking the real questions here, doc. Hmm.
Yep, exactly. So I told him, I was like, hey, the big thing we need to do is we really need to focus on getting blood flow to the area. And because he couldn't keep down food as well. I said, do you want to take these medications? You can take them. Yeah, but these are the side effects. Or what we can do is we can take this food and we can work on cold plunging, which shunts blood flow from and also neural input from our extremities to the core, and also focuses on neural input being put not to the things that don't really matter as much, but the things that do matter are a necessity for life. It's interesting working with the parasympathetic versus sympathetic system. This guy I'm working with, he's a wealth management consultant and he deals with a very high stress job all the time. So what's interesting is he also likes to do hard things and also is trying to stay away from a back surgery. He loves cars and going fast. He loves skydiving and doing different things. And when you look at his life, you would be like, these things are so polar opposite. He has a stressful job, loves to do fast things, but he's so sympathetically driven that that's what he's trying to do, is do hard things to kind of, create that cycle of that he's actually doing something in life. And you get this from working with others and understanding it. But when you can get an input, like driving a car, for example, right? If you drive a car fast, like we're partners with the driving club at Road Atlanta, really cool stuff. If you drive a car fast, you can get to within 10 to 15% of your max heart rate within 10 minutes and stay there as long as you're staying, at a pretty high speed. But that's not what he needs because again, he's heating up and he's shunting blood flow away from his gut. He has to use that energy somewhere else. So everything he does that's sympathetically driven is shooting blood elsewhere. I look at blood flow as one of the most important things because of this. And when you look at cold plunging, so you cold plunge and you eat something, you cold plunge for him, for this example, and you're shunting blood to the areas it needs to be. Get out, go on with the rest of your day. Have a great day. You do that for a couple of days, and wow, he can eat and he can keep it down. And wow, it's not super nauseating, and he doesn't have to go to the bathroom or throw up or anything. It's because he's giving his body the specific input he needs and the nutrition he needs simultaneously to get over something and not take drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's so fascinating getting to know the physiology behind these things and then being able to just pick what you want to do with a client and just easily explain it. You talked about marketing and communicating before. That is the hardest thing we do, is communicating the importance behind things. But
Mm-hmm.
you want to have the tools to do that to help the client in front of you. And when you can prove to them that you're willing to help them and not only not put your hands on them because you don't always need to, when you can do that, Troy, and you can give them the outcome they're looking for without putting your hands on them, you're just using your brain and basic physiology, they start to look at you like, wow, you're such a genius. But then you turn it right back on them and you say, but this is why. Because again, I don't want stupid clients. I want clients that are smart and that are able to continue to build in their life and grow. Which, if you're talking about a marketing perspective, who are they sending someone to, and who are they going to continue to see for the problems that they have? It just it's exactly what I think we're called to do. So, I mean, it's so cool. I know you just asked me a question about how to use nutrition and temperature, and that's just a story of how I do it. But,
Mm-hmm.
those things are basic principles of physiology that I think are just lost, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a very fascinating case example, and certainly I've never heard of anyone, integrating a cold plunge to shunt blood to, more the central or higher order organs and areas of the body, right? The blood goes from the periphery to more of the core of the body. So that is something that makes sense, something that we learn about, but something that isn't necessarily applied to regularly in practice. So that's awesome. I'm encouraged to hear that you are able to use strategies like that and help people in such a real way, right? And to let people know, like, hey, this guy is willing to, not even lay a hand on me. He really wants to find the root of the problem. He really will do what he feels like is best fit for my position, for my circumstance, to help get the optimal outcome that we're going for here. And it takes being creative as a clinician. It takes meeting people where they're at. It takes listening to people, and like you said there too, with communicating the why behind it, because that may seem like such a stretch to someone that doesn't know what's going on, right? But how are you able to explain the reasoning behind what you're choosing to do to help them to be like, oh yeah, you know what, that makes sense. I'm gonna buy into that and really lean into it to see if it actually will help, right? Because that part of things is an important component of the patient practitioner relationship as well. So, dude,
What I, I
that's really cool.
found what I found with that though, Troy, is that there was a good podcast, and I sadly haven't been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. Sadly, in some ways, other ways good, because I'm listening to my Bible study in the car instead of doing podcasts. So pick
And
and choose,
hey,
right?
I'd rather listen to the Bible than a podcast any day.
Any day, dude. Any day. Just the time of life I'm in. I tried that this year, and if anyone doesn't have time, no excuse. You can listen to the Bible app, and it will literally read it to you. And that's how I get the word in. I'd say 90% of the time during the week. But I will say though, too, Troy, that it's really important for everyone who's listening to know that what we do is for the clients to know that they have freedom through discipline. And I've been trying to articulate this more and more, meaning these habits that we give to them, these corrective exercises, these nutritional guidelines, whatever it is, these habits need to turn into routines to change their lifestyle, to eventually change their life. And the systems that we are trying to create are to do just that. They come in for an initial issue, and then they shoot out and say, it'd be awesome if this would be the case, but that doesn't really matter because that probably would never happen. We build such good rapport with them that we listen to that. We we put it down and we say that's a performance focus. That's something that is high level. That's something that is more enhancing, and we're just going to hold on to that for a little bit. And we'll kind of bring it up through the time as they continue to move along this continuum of care. That's when you can tell them at a certain point, turn around and look where you've gone. Now turn ahead and look where you're going. And that's where the capability that we're really all about, giving people capability, is really changing their physiology to the point where they are capable and able to function. That is something that I'm so passionate about. That is something that I've done with so many clients and I love doing. And it's amazing to do it because it doesn't take a whole lot. What it takes is having the tools and having the systems to be able to do it. Well, and you have to care. Like that's another thing. But
Prerequisite for
I want
yeah.
yeah, care is definitely the first one. But I will say that I want all of our listeners to know that it really takes just that. You have to know what performance looks like, and you have to know how to get someone there, or at least train that to be able to go through. I think R2P is really good in the middle. I think that's a fantastic thing. No one's going to die in the beginning. That's taken care of. But
Yep,
man,
yeah, yeah. Red
R2P
flags ruled out.
train. Yeah. What's that?
I said red flags ruled out. All right, cool. Boom in the middle.
Yep.
But yeah, truly
Right.
getting someone to performance is a whole conversation we could discuss too. With yeah, that's not very common as a whole across the profession, right? Like that's not really what's occurring within chiropractic PT. That's really where a lot of times a transition between practitioner to like trainer or coach occurs too, or the client gets sent off. Hey, you've cleared the discharge criteria. Oh, you're not in pain anymore. Okay, great. Go tackle whatever you're trying to do. And then oftentimes their system isn't able to tolerate the demands of what they're trying to go do at that point. So I think that is an interesting discussion. I would love to hear your thoughts on, how how do we get to that point, or maybe what are some challenges that you see in the profession, or what you've encountered as a clinician with bringing people to maybe that true kind of performance, or ready to actually execute at a high level of what they're trying to accomplish, whatever it may be. I know we're kind of taking a little bit of a pivot, but I like what you brought up at the end there, so we're gonna roll with it here.
Let's tie it to business, a client's lifetime value.
Yeah.
If someone only comes to you for pain, and you show them that you're good at pain, that's great. And, you can get someone out of pain. I don't think it's that hard to do that, and
Hmm.
that's the funny thing
Yeah.
is you're in the R2P circle and you're listening to this. It should not be that hard. And I remember it being hard. I remember it being anxious. Do you remember that, Troy? You remember those trimesters where you're like, man,
Mhm.
we've been told it's not that hard, but if you get the experience and reps at the plate, man, like it's really not that bad. The true thing is to keep it out of pain or to keep it away from a condition is the hard part. And that's what we call wellness focus, right? So health focus is you're in the trenches of treatment. Wellness focus is what do you need as a minimum to prevent this issue? That's where I think, to give a critique to R2P, I think they need to improve upon. I think something that we need to be focused on is how do we prevent it and not only know how to prevent it, but give the client the tools to prevent it as well. Which is why, of course, we're talking along these lines. But then you get to performance. So I kind of talk about this as a glass of water, right? So I have a glass here and I think of the performance is you want to increase your capability, which is on the x axis, and on the y axis here, it just takes time. And the bigger cup you have as you go through life, the better for capability, the bigger cup, the more you can do, the better you feel, better you can perform, and truly better life you can live. So, why would you not enhance that cup? That's my question I ask my clients. And when we get to the wellness focus, I ask that question, and it comes in a lot of different ways. I use a lot of different analogies as well, but they're just like, yeah, I don't really have a true way to say, yeah, like this is why I don't.
Hmm.
But really nurturing what we need to nurture from a wellness standpoint and enhance what we need to enhance. And that comes through different chapters of life. So you got to know the person.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people, they want to enhance their pickleball game. Well, you better be good at multi-segmental rotation. You better be good at agility work. You better be good at cardiovascular and threshold work because a match can last up to a minute. Let's work on these things. Let's have standards that you have to you have to hit and get to. And then once you get there, you keep climbing. So that's really the cool part behind all this is that I think we're not looking at the whole picture enough. I think we're looking at the health focus. We get to the wellness focus. We kind of give some recommendations and we're like, yep, I'm the hero again. Look at that. Now, I think we can take it further. I think we can say the wellness focus is at least nurturing these things to not go back that way. The law of entropy says we're going to go back that way. The law of entropy says we're going to go to the least common denominator. I say nurture and enhance. So that's kind of the interesting part. The lifetime value of a client goes from, for us, in the $700 to $900 range, all the way up to the $2,000+ range. So from a business standpoint, you're not only talking about, double the profit, but you can even triple, quadruple, and so on the profit. We've only been in Brazelton for 6 months, but that's what we're finding when we go from a health focus alone to wellness and performance, which is pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And true from a business standpoint that adds value, but also to the client's life as well, and what they're trying to do. It adds value and keeps them doing what they're wanting, keeps them in their activity, keeps them out of pain, and giving them the tools and strategies to help manage anything that's going on outside of the clinic as well. So I think I think you hit the nail on the head, and that wellness focus is what we ought to be going after as well. And of course, it's up to the provider to communicate, and then the patient to meet the provider where they're at, and accepting, hey, I consent to go through this or that or certain length of child care or whatever the situation may look like, right? I don't know exactly what your model is on that side of things, but that communication piece is important, and I think you lay the framework, the foundation really well with communicating. Hey, it's about wellness here. We're gonna look at those outcomes to truly get your system operating to where it needs to be to do the things that you're wanting to do in life.
I can tell a quick story about how wellness being a standard, because we actually used to use that slogan, and I still communicate in that way, but I can tell a quick story about that.
Yes, yes, tell a quick story.
So I was working with a client up in Gainesville, and I've had this client for probably, oh man, 14 months. So just over a year. And she was getting, epidurals in the neck. She was getting lidocaine shots in the back, in the low back, just completely deconditioned. And she started to see me because she brought her daughter to me from a gymnastic standpoint. And I helped her daughter. She goes, "Do you think you could help me?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And she followed us to Brazelton, and we started to do some corrective exercise work, or what we call functional movement work. We started to do some fitness work over time. Then she got on our concierge care services. And it's super fascinating because she started the concierge care and her lifestyle is completely not these things, right? And she's doing, chiropractic, she's doing functional movement stuff, she's doing fitness, she has a program, she's doing nutrition, temperature therapy, all for her and what she needs. And she comes off of it and goes, I don't know if I can do it. I can only come here twice a week. I just don't know if I can do it. It's overwhelming. And then I said, "Hey, that sounds good. How about we focus on the biggest thing, movement, specifically fitness. Let's get together for 2 more months and let's do fitness." Today I just met with her and it was so cool. She had her blood test she were trying to increase her testosterone as well. And she had her blood test and her blood test came back, better. And I was like, that's freaking awesome. And I talked to her about this and I said, listen, at the end of the day, these things still need improvement. But I will say that look how far you've come. So I want to let you know we're here to nurture these things that we have done, but I recommend enhancing these things because they still need improvement. They're considered unhealthy. And she looked at me and goes, "I know sometimes I'm just not motivated. That's why I couldn't, continue forward with such an intense, program, if you will." And I told her, "Well, are you motivated or are you committed?" And she goes, "Huh." She goes, "What's the difference?" And I explained the difference. I said, motivation starts the process, but commitment helps you realize that you're committed to something that's actually meaningful. So whether you want to or not, I'm going to do it. And today she goes, "Oh my goodness, this is the problem is I wasn't committed, which is why I thought this was too much, but I used my motivation to say I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this." So she goes, "Okay." She goes, "I'm going to commit to doing 3 more months of of the concierge side of things because I know it can help me if I just did it." She's like, "I've got all these things accomplished. I'm nurturing these things. I need to improve these things. I'm going." And I was just like, heck yeah, let's go. But I didn't give up on her. You see, I didn't just say, she doesn't want to do it, whatever it may be. I'm using this terminology and I'm helping her realize you don't need to keep doing the same thing. It's not, as Craig Liebenson says, rehab purgatory.
Mm.
What it is you do things till you're at least to a proficient standpoint. Now let's nurture those things. Let's not let them go. But there's still further to go in some ways. And that's someone that was completely unhealthy in all forms of objectives. And she even sees it too. And she's not
Mm.
even to performance. She's in health and wellness. And
Mhm.
it's taken 14 months of walking through these things. And that's what something, young clinicians need to know is that it takes time. There's people that don't understand at all what we're talking about. We
Mhm.
need to sympathize with these folks and we need to take them under our wing and cry with them, laugh with them, and have a system that encourages them along the way. Because at one point, this client that I have, she is going to be probably done like with a formal program, but she's definitely going to know how to nurture herself because she just explained it to me, which is freaking cool. She explained to me what she
Yeah,
needs to
that's
do
awesome.
and what she needs to enhance. So just long story short is like, we need to at least get folks to nurturing, and that doesn't look like what we've been taught in school or even in R2P. But you got to search that out of how to actually help clients and don't give up on them. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. No, dude, I love that. I love how you didn't give up on her, which helped her to not give up on herself and step away from what she needed to do to achieve her goals and step into true health and wellness, right? And I think that that is a powerful thing because too, the goal isn't, hey, yeah, you're going to be under care for forever. It's it's the we get to a point to where a trial care is done, and hey, we assess and reestablish other metrics that need to be improved upon to achieve set goal and to be operating under that optimum health, optimum wellness to achieve the blood markers that we're going for to, you know, reach a certain, if she's going toward a certain body fat percentage or trying to train for something particular, right? Like all these things are factors to go into things. So, as long as there's something to work toward, and some and tools and strategy you can give and provide, there's still work to be done, and that can shift and change based on the patient's season of life, based on what you as a provider feel like is needed to achieve said goal, and what is necessary medically if they're actually going through pain or discomfort, or from a standpoint of, hey, we're gonna train, get to certain capacity to tackle the demands of what you're trying to do. So it's cool to see someone out there who is trying to have the biggest impact in someone's overall all health, overall wellness, and really taking into consideration different factors, different circumstances in life, and taking time to educate too, because as the definition of doctor means is to be a teacher, right? So along the way, you're explaining what's going on with them. Why are they going through this, that, the other? What's the why behind what you're doing from a, physiological or metabolic standpoint? Like what are things that's happening within their system, and tools and strategies to get to where they want to go. So the education piece is something I know you do well. You're such a great communicator, and I think bar none, that's probably the most useful skill as a clinician and or a business, the business owner too, that comes in handy, right? Whether it's a marketing conversation or a patient interaction, that communication is so key, and understanding relationships, understanding who the person is, because that will shift your communication with that individual. So that's something I've noticed you're intentional with, and I think it's very valuable within our field as well.
Thank you, brother. I would say communication is by far the most important thing. By far. Marketing is communication.
Hmm.
It's what medium are you using, right? So I would agree with that. And folks, Dr. Troy knows what he's talking about. Keep listening.
I am trying, learning and growing one day at a time, man.
Yes, sir.
Wait, we are button up to the end of time here. I also want to respect your time, but this is kind of the portion or length in which I try to wind things down. So before we officially conclude, would love to hear any final takeaways, encouragements for our listeners today.
Man, it's a wide open question.
It is wide open. I'll make it a little more specific. I'll make it a little more specific. Let's let's do threefold, okay? Let's do biggest takeaway within the realm of Christian walk, biggest takeaway within the realm of patient care. Thirdly, a final hammer into the nail with the business conversation as well.
For sure.
Three-pronged
Well,
question here.
number one, the biggest takeaway from the Christian perspective, I believe it's Psalm 127. I think it's Psalm 127. All about we can do a lot of things, but it's all vanity if the Lord doesn't bless it. And
Mhm.
you know, before Troy and I jumped on today, I caught up with Troy a little bit, saw him back and everything, and I told him that he has been honoring the Lord's statutes. He has been a man after God's heart like David, and that the Lord has blessed him and kept him from all these different things in life that we can fall into because he has continued to search for the Lord. But that's the same thing for me. is like I do nothing outside of give glory to God for anything. As Troy said to me, I don't deserve it. God deserves all the glory. Same goes for me, is that as soon as you think you're doing it by yourself, the Lord will absolutely humble you. Absolutely. And I want everyone to hear that too, whether in
Mhm.
Christ or outside, is that, we can build all these things, we can do all these things, but the Lord will humble you because it is about the Lord, it is about Christ. He is the main character in all of our stories, whether we know him and put our trust in him or we don't. He is the main character. And it's either we understand reality for what it is and what the word says it is, or we don't. So, maybe it's a call to search the word of God for the first time, or maybe it's a call to see Christ as the main character in your own life experientially, because that is the truth. That is what the Bible says, is everything is for and from God, and especially through Christ. In Colossians, we're going through, and in Colossians 1 and in 2, it really talks about the nature of Christ. So the biggest takeaway from a Christian perspective is just realize that you're a servant. You're a servant here to serve the
Mhm.
Lord. And I am just another servant. And I pursue excellence because Christ is excellent and he calls me to be excellent. So that's my biggest
Amen.
takeaway from a Christian perspective that I've been kind of just wrestling over. From
Mhm.
a patient care perspective, man, I one thing is funny is I hate the word patient. And it's
I
nothing bad.
I have picked up on that, because
Yeah.
I hear you use the word client, this, that, the other,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
actually heard like in our dialogue one on one too. You have given that spiel, but anyway, continue.
That's beside the point. But from a client care standpoint, wink, wink, it's a partnership. And if you I if there's ever a client that doesn't fulfill upon something, at the end of the day, stop looking at them at like they're the problem, because there's something you could have done better for them. We are
Mhm.
called to serve, and we are called to serve selflessly. And I remember I had this client. I tell stories, by the way, Troy. That's just the way I work. But I
Love
had
it.
this client that
Mhm.
when we first started in Brazelton, she came in, I think she was one of our first clients there. And she came and saw me, and she just couldn't understand the system that we were doing and couldn't understand, why she was going to come in every other week, and, just these different things, the plan that we had. And at the end of the day, she didn't understand stress plus recovery equals adaptation, but specific stress and specific recovery equals a specific adaptation or an outcome. She just didn't understand that. And it took me 3 months of just fighting her to just come in and get care for her to understand that. But it was my fault because I didn't explain that to her. So, from a client care perspective, if your clients are not getting better, it's your fault. You are the leader. You're from the Bible standpoint of things, you're called to condescend and to lift them up. It's like the bigger brother versus the weaker brother. You want to look at it the same way. Someone is literally submitting their bodies to you, and you have to take that into consideration to continue to serve others. So think of it as, if there's ever a failure, it's probably your fault and you can learn from it.
I love.
And try to learn from it. And then from a business perspective, if you are going to start a new business, the most important thing is marketing by far. And I say that because, we were led to think that marketing is just going to happen naturally. People will just hear about you, and, buzz will happen. Maybe if you're from a small town and you move back to the same hometown and different things, but we learned the hard way that, marketing in this day and age, it has to be multifactorial. There has to be different mediums. There has to be a clear message in the same message that is being portrayed, especially if you're doing a campaign during a campaign.
Mhm.
Everybody on the team is a walking example of your business. So they're marketing by their actions as well. We hire and
Mhm.
fire based on actions, not based on talk. Of course, messaging is important and the way you communicate, but based on actions. And we are all about what are you saying? And you're saying it through either verbs, communication, or you're saying it through your actions. So marketing is the biggest thing for business, and I highly recommend business degrees or marketing podcasts, marketing books. If someone's looking to start a business and they're in school, a year out of starting a business, you need to be thinking about marketing. You need to think about where are you going?
Mm.
What is the message you want to portray? How are you going to do that? And you need to invest in a great marketing company. You need metrics, you need the whole thing. That's what we had to learn the hard way. And we're very happy because now we've, learned the hard way. And like I said with the client, right? If something doesn't work, it's your fault probably. Same with marketing.
Mhm, mhm.
At the end of the day, if you're the business owner, it's your fault. So
Yep.
that's what I
Taking
would say for the
responsibility
big
is huge.
takeaway. Exactly.
Yeah, no, dude, for real. I love it, brother. I love it. Great, 3 great takeaways. Thank you for taking time to intentionally answer all of those. Those were very, very valuable.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for your time. This was such a lovely conversation. It's always a blessing to catch up with you and to pick your brain and hope that everyone listening got something to walk away with that they can implement within their walk, within business, within client care across the board. It's there's something in here for them to chew on a little bit. So thank you, Patrick, again. Much love to you. Many blessings. Praying for you, your family, and the clinic as well, and the patients you get to, clients you get to work with on that in that realm, right? So,
Don't
and
don't just
listeners, thank you for
hang,
tuning in.
don't just hang up on me now. One
Don't what?
sec. Let me shout you out quick, Troy. Well, Dr. Troy, I should say. Yeah, everyone, if you're listening and you're in the Dallas area, man, I mean, Troy is a man that is above reproach, and you guys know that. I recommend reaching out to him if you have any questions, or reaching out to me, of course, if you have any questions. But, it's just a blessing to be on this podcast. Troy, I see what you're doing from afar. I don't get to follow it as close as I'd like to because of the entrepreneurial spirit I have and just where I'm at in the tunnel of the fight, if you will.
Yeah,
But I will say that I do pray over this podcast and your business. I pray over what you're doing. And I'm just so excited to see the Lord bless you because, of course, you are a man of the Lord, and I just pray for that persistence as well. So just keep rocking with this, Troy. Listeners, keep listening to this. He brings on really good speakers. I don't know why he reached out to me, but besides that, I mean, but anyway, Troy, thank you so much, brother.
Patrick, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the encouragement. All praise be to the Lord, and I too pray over you. I too pray over the podcast and every single listener that they would come to see Jesus more rightly through every single conversation. And today is definitely no different. So
That'll
thank you.
preach.
We'll end it here. Before we do, how can people reach you?
Yeah, absolutely.
How can people
You could
reach
reach
you?
me
Mhm.
via email. So Dr. Patrick at Movement Lab, C is in chiropractic, P is in performance.com. That's my email. Or you can reach out to our phone number via our website and get more, like, set up a time for us to talk. You can talk to our office manager, Jess. That's another thing I didn't talk about. Get a great office manager. She is fantastic. Uh, anyway, that's
Mhm.
beside the point. But reach out and we'll set up a time to talk and hang out. Don't be afraid to reach out. I wish I would have done that more often when I was in your shoes for your listeners.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely. That's huge. Definitely reach out, especially if the invitation is there, and it's so valuable to pick people's brains who are in the field out doing the thing. So I'll also
Now,
put all that information in
quick,
the
one
show
second.
notes as well.
One second.
Yeah.
I gotta say something.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta say something. So I was talking about this podcast that I was listening to. I hate to do this, but I have to say it. I know you're trying to outro, but here we go, man. So
No
Andy
worries.
Galpin
Do it.
had a guy on there that was an ultra marathoner 2 episodes ago. I forgot. Do you remember his name? Ken Rideout. Ken Rideout. And they both they both said that they did not work with the the teams that they wanted to because nobody asked them, but instead they worked with other people that just did ask them. It's the same thing for Troy and for me. If you have any questions, all you have to do is ask. So just want to throw that
Mm.
out there. Even the best in the world, like, Ken Rideout and Dr. Andy Galpin, they just want to be asked to help. So just ask, and we're here to help.
Yeah. True. Great point. Love it. Reach out. Don't be afraid to ask. But hey, I'll go ahead and end it here. God bless y'all, and catch you on the next one.